Today I'm joined by Reverend Dr. Carlton Turner. Carlton is a Caribbean cultural and practical theologian. He's currently an Anglican tutor at the Queen's Foundation in Birmingham, but is known to many in Lichfield Diocese as he was previously a vicar in the block switch team. Carlton, thanks so much for speaking with me today. It's great to have you.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Lindsay, and it's a pleasure to be here.
So in this series, we're reflecting a bit on perspectives on the church. From your point of view, what would you say is the biggest challenge the church faces at the moment?
I would say the first thing comes to mind is identity. I think so much that goes on in the public square in relations to the church comes down to what the Church of England is, and a lot of people don't quite know or appreciate how it operates. And I think those of us within the churches have different versions of the church that are not the same.
Yeah.
And how we communicate that is crucial. And often so much that goes out are different things. And I think there's something about being an institution or having an institutional aspect that does not go well with how contemporary people think. Or there are so many things that have gone awry over the years that have not quite been addressed. So the church has been, I think, seen in itself for what it is as kind of an ancient, old-fashioned institution that has no relevance anymore. And tons of people love Jesus.
Yeah.
They love the church as a movement, and Christianity or worship songs. You go to BBC and you see gospel music is a big thing.
Yeah.
Gospel music is a big thing for people who don't know anything about church. But yet there's this dissociation, and I think that's a big challenge.
So we've got this sort of split identity of being the people, some of the people who love Jesus and are kind of living that out, but also this weight of institution and organization that perhaps doesn't make sense to people. Or maybe even worse than doesn't make sense to them, they object to or are suspicious of.
Yeah, I get that. And I see it very clearly coming from another context where church just is located differently within people's mind. So we've been so shaped in the Bahamas. I'm from the Bahamas, people. Let me just say that out there, 100% Bahamian. But in the Caribbean, there are similar issues, but we have not made that great kind of secularized journey, to use a term, and I say that tentatively, but we haven't made that journey. We're still so entrenched within church, but I think something has happened in this nation where people have been alienated in so many ways for decades and maybe even centuries. So a branding reality, I think, needs to happen.
Yeah. So that's a massive challenge, isn't it? Do you think there are any opportunities that presents?
Yes. I think far from shrieking back into an institutional mode, I think the church has an opportunity to speak, to open up conversations. You have to be ahead of this game. And I see this when younger people who are younger than me, who are within the church, are going through vocations. The things they're talking about and are concerned about, issues like justice and climate change and making sure we have a carbon neutral footprint. These aren't small, fancy things. These are topical issues.
Yeah.
These are issues tied into bigger questions of who we are, what we're made for, what the earth serves us for. And I think the church can be a credible voice with a lot of wisdom.
Mm,
And it cannot simply stay silent. So one of the things I do is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
mm-hmm.
And here's a core idea. When you're at your most defeated or in the worst position, actually that's the point of strength, because within that there's an opportunity to take advantage of something
Yeah,
somehow. When
yeah.
one thing is held down, something opens up, and I think there's something about that.
Mm.
um
I thought you were going to give us a demo then.
I'd love to, but you know
Yeah, so there's a sense in which we could say that that's one of the ways at looking at the church, isn't it? That's where it is at its moment of kind of weakness in terms of a cultural credibility, its kind of voice in the public square. Um, so it gives it a real opportunity to, I suppose, finding a new voice or re-find its voice. Is that the sort of idea?
exactly. So let me give you a very pressing example. We the report from lament to action
Yeah.
has is on the scene and in the public square, and we're talking about it in the church, and really it has to do with bringing about actions for equality in light of racism. The
Mm,
Archbishop of Canterbury has said and acknowledged publicly, and the wider British society knows this very well,
mm,
that the Church of England is institutionally racist, and
mm.
those words are key. Institutional. This isn't personal.
Yeah.
There are some facets, factors, processes that need to be examined. And I think because has been opened up, we now have a chance to ask a big question: who are we?
Mm,
And I don't think that question has been really resolved. I mean, there's a culture of the Church of England, but is that, and should that be the Church of England? You know,
mm, mm.
and whose definition of what that culture looks like? Certainly, if you are on the Mosley estate in Bloxwich, you know, in Walsall, your perspective is going to look so different to somebody who is in rural Shropshire.
Yeah.
And I don't think these two contexts necessarily talk to each other.
Mm,
Life is not the same.
mm.
Also, race is just one issue. I mean, there's a bigger issue, I believe, with regard to the whole class identity
Yeah.
that needs to be dealt with. It probably can't be dealt with. I mean, and it's like branded into this nation in every way, on every level. And I think a lot of it is subconscious. Now the opportunity is, what is going on?
Mm. So to bring some things into the light.
Exactly.
Mm.
As I say sometimes, precisely. Like precisely, exactly.
Brilliant. And what sort of resources do you think we have as church to do some of this, to kind of name some of those things, to begin to actually tackle them, not just name them?
Yeah. I think our people,
Mm.
I have a lot of respect for vocations, the kind of stuff that you've had me been involved with. I've been privileged to be involved with, and I see it on the other end where all kinds of people come to train formally, formal ordination training,
Yeah.
and they bring so much gifts, so many gifts, so many skills, and so many different ways of viewing the world. And I think our people are engaging these issues in other spheres of life and have so much to offer.
Mm. Mm.
And younger people are bringing a whole lot of energy. So I think our people are our resource. Different kinds of people. So you and I have gone through theological training to doctoral level. We see life in a particular way. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a politically minded person. Well, and we all are to some extent. But there are people who have other gifts than we do.
Mm,
And I think for the sake of the church, we need to capitalize on other wisdoms
mm,
that our people have and that our people bring.
mm,
I think tackling these issues are not just um, theological or ecclesiastical.
mm,
I think we need to open up a table for all sorts of other voices to come in.
mm,
And just open up the table. We have the platform.
mm.
Um, and I think Litchfield has been trying to do that in so many ways, investing in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we need more of it more nationally, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of voices, aren't there, that people don't necessarily even know that they've got a voice, and it's welcome, it's invited to be part of the conversation.
Yeah,
But there's
yeah.
so much wisdom, isn't there, that we don't kind of necessarily hear, that doesn't make its way into the conversation. So maybe some ways of changing that would make a big difference.
Yeah, and here's something also close to my heart, Lindsay. For the person sitting in the pew, they might not have a university education. It doesn't mean that they don't have wisdom
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
or go getter,
Mm,
go get it attitude, or they're the kind of people who provide that space where things happen.
yeah.
Like simple things for me are so important, like an encourager. I
Mm,
usually say sometimes the most amazing thing God uses for you about you on a Sunday morning is when you smile at somebody.
mm.
It's not your brilliance or your whatever you think you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like your kindness, like simple stuff, basic stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm all about the ordinary person has so much to offer, but we take it for granted because we can't.
Mm. I think that's right. And sometimes we get caught in this idea, don't we, that sort of education is the same as faithfulness, that it's the people who've like studied who are more, take discipleship more seriously or whatever. And of course, that just isn't true. But there are
No.
all sorts of ways of wrestling with faith, of living it out. And as you said, for us, that's been a particular kind of formal route in a way. But for most people, it's life, isn't it? It's how you do this with your family, in your community, in your job, in where you find
Exactly.
yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges in all of that. What gives you hope for the church as you look forward, particularly? What gives you hope?
I I I'm appreciating how different movements within the church itself, like there is a self-critiquing going on with younger generations.
Mm.
I think that's a natural, you have a child and then the child branches out on their own and they don't want to be like you because you're older than
Yeah.
boring. But I think something like that is happening in the church where younger generations who are thinking in different ways, um, a lot of them, and I've met a fair few who still love and believe that the church has something to offer, but they think differently,
Mm.
but they still remain, or they find themselves there. And I
Yeah.
think we need to take that seriously. Um, and I have hope because I believe, like, I'm frustrated sometimes by institutionalisms. And this is something I think I've studied and I'm very aware of. But I'm also very aware of movements that do not conform to the institution, but are for the benefit of, like a prophetic
Yeah.
function. It's there to point out, thus says the Lord, you're stale and you're boring. But it offers an alternative vision.
Mm.
And it's not just the way we used to doing things, it's like through art, through poetry, through music,
Mm.
um, through online social media, you know,
Mm.
TikToking,
Yeah.
the church TikToking, Um, but it points to the fact that hey, guys, there's a movement going on. The church is still alive.
Mm.
This thing is an ongoing conversation. And
Yeah.
that's where I want to be locating myself, discerning where we going,
Mm.
and like a flow in the spirit. That gives me hope.
Mm.
And it let's not I it's not in the charismatic worship that has its place here. It's not in your sense of feeling good after service. It's not confined to these spaces.
Mm.
It sometimes it's as simple as the church opening up its hall, its spaces to community groups and peacekeeping groups.
Mm.
And those are movements too.
Mm. Yeah.
Those give me hope, really.
So seeing where there's energy and life and the spirit is at work, and maybe remembering that that's not always where we expect to look for it, where it's kind of obvious to look for it.
Exactly. Exactly. Pre-exactly.
That's great, Carlton. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Lindsay. It's a pleasure.